BBC News.
Hello and welcome to Business Matters. I'm Rob Young. I hope you're well. As always, we're joined throughout the show by two guests on opposite sides of the world. With us today, Nicole Childers, executive producer of Marketplace Morning Report on US Public Radio. She is in Los Angeles. Afternoon, Nicole. And we also have Andy Xie, an independent economist, formerly of Morgan Stanley and the World Bank. He is in Shanghai. Morning, Andy.
Good morning, Rob.
Good to have you both on the programme. The police in Hong Kong have been granted sweeping new powers under China's new national security law. Details published on Monday reveal the police now have the right to search people's homes without a warrant, restrict suspects' movements and force internet service providers to remove information. The new law is supposed to target secession, subversion and terrorism with punishment of up to life in prison. Pro-democracy campaigners say the law means the effective end of freedom of speech in Hong Kong. Countries including the UK, US, Canada and Australia have expressed concern over the imposition of the new security law. China has accused the UK of gross interference in its internal affairs after London outlined a path to citizenship for up to 3 million Hong Kongers. Now, Facebook, Google and Twitter have said they'll pause handing over information on their users to the Hong Kong police. Companies usually cooperate with the authorities when local law or a court requires them to. Tech companies have long operated freely in Hong Kong, where internet access has been unaffected by restrictions imposed in the mainland of China, which blocks Google, Twitter and Facebook. Andy, do you think these companies are right to stop cooperating with the Hong Kong authorities?
Well, I think that a way can look at it these from several perspectives. One is from the business perspective. Hong Kong is a small market to them, so it's easy for them to make a decision like this. On the second front is that you are dealing with China's political system. And Chinese government insists that you have to work with the Chinese government. Otherwise, you should not have a business here. So this is, I think that if they obviously have the right to stand up for the values, but I think that there will be consequences, and I do not expect these platforms to operate freely in Hong Kong in the foreseeable future.
Do you think that Facebook, Google and Twitter, the other big Western tech companies, will just end up having to leave Hong Kong?
I do. I think the interesting thing is Apple, because Apple has such a big revenue in China. It sells over 20% of its iPhones in China, and the Apple Store has more revenue in China than in the United States. So
that's quite a statistic.
I think that, yeah. So this is going to be very hard for Apple. But I think that anyway, China will restrict these platforms in Hong Kong, and because Beijing's philosophy is that people must be managed in terms of what they can say, what they can hear. So that's totally different from the philosophy of these social media platforms. So I think that it's a conflict that cannot be resolved.
And so, Andy, do you think the one country, two systems policy is now over?
I think that it's more like 1.5. That's what I see. It's the Beijing is basically saying that I have a carve out. Anything related to politics, it's under me. But if somebody steals something, there's a robbery, there's a business dispute between two companies, it's still one country, two systems. So that is kind of their view of what's going on. So I think that in terms of pure one country, two systems is pretty much over.
Around the world, tens of thousands of sailors are still stranded at sea due to border closures and immigration restrictions caused by the pandemic. The situation has brought their cramped living and working conditions into sharp focus. Many work between 10 and 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, for up to 6 months at a time. ships without the need for humans on board would be a game changer in how the whole industry operates. Well, let's have another word with Andy and Nicole. Andy, what do you make of this development? Could it really revolutionize global shipping?
Well, I think I would pour a little bit of cold water on that. I think it's going to take a long time for a couple of reasons. One is that you look at the autonomous driving car. It's the Silicon Valley has been hyping it for long time. It is still not happening. So I think that the technology is not so simple, and it takes a long time to get there. The second is really cost. You look at why the crews are treated like that, because the crews are really from poor countries like the Philippines and Sri Lanka, and these people take a very low pay, and they accept a very unhygienic, cramped working conditions, and so for ship owners, it's a really low cost solution. Even if the technology has been perfected, it's not clear that they can compete against these people from Sri Lanka or the Philippines.
As unemployment rates in most coronavirus hit countries rocket, the official jobless number in China has hovered around but not above the government's target. But even though the official figures might not reflect it, a wave of layoffs is expected as companies struggle to survive just as millions of fresh graduates start looking for work. Andy, what is the official unemployment rate in China, and what do you think the actual number really is?
Well, the official number is what the premier said is about 6%. But it's very difficult to register as being unemployed. Most migrant workers don't bother. No benefits anyway. So there are 300 million migrant workers. So these are the people who are get hit first. So unemployment crisis is real, and we don't know how high unemployment rate is. Could it be 10%? Could it be higher? We really don't know. As a private individual, we don't have the resources to go out to a survey. But I think this is very serious since that the premier suggested that street vending as a way out. China has been trying to clean up the streets in major cities for a long time to make them look like first world cities. Now the premier is talking about bringing back street vending. So I think it shows it's serious.
If it is as serious as that, you said that there aren't any benefits. Rather than telling people to go and sell stuff on the street, do you think the government should be looking at some kind of unemployment benefit program?
Well, this is where I think that East Asian countries, China in particular, is kind of even though it's a socialist country, they say it's pretty hard-nosed when it comes to money. During the pandemic, there was no handout like in the U.S. or in Europe. So people basically sucked it up. They suffered a tremendous income loss during this period, and now they don't have the money as much money to spend. So the domestic consumption is not bouncing back, and that has an even bigger impact on employment than export business, because that food and beverage and tourism employ way over 10% of the labor force. So this is where I think that the government still is sticking to its old approach. People, you suck it up, and the government wants money to spend on infrastructure and big ticket items. That's what they are doing still, what they are doing.
But if unemployment does rise, potentially above 10%, as you were suggesting just before, and there are no benefits in place, that does become a political problem, doesn't it?
Well, I think the government's experience it's not a problem. In 1998, when China had the previous big unemployment crisis, and the wage was really low, it was about $100 per month, and the steel enterprise were laying off workers, breaking the iron rice bowl social contract, and at that time I expected some social disturbance. but it didn't happen. People sucked it up. Somebody with no money would get something from relatives or friends. That's how China went through that phase. And all these people just poured into labor market, demanding less and less pay. And that led to this fracture of the world development. Everybody, all the multinational companies came to China to take advantage of the $100 per month wage, and eventually to solve the China's unemployment crisis. I don't know if they have the same luck this time, because it has a lot to do with the domestic situation. But overall, the Chinese people do save up when they have money. So it takes time for people to become really desperate, and they still have money in the bank.
Andy, we heard in Robin's report there that this idea that there may well be a beginning of the reversal of urbanisation in China. We know there are hundreds of millions of migrant workers in the cities in China. Are we seeing urbanisation go into reverse?
The urbanization story is being sold as mainly a kind of a migration story. It's partly true, but you look at all these people that reporters interview. They actually don't own properties. They they stay in dormitories, or they rent a small flat. Many people squeeze in. So if you call that urbanization through migration, it's possible, but it really does not is not a force for urbanization like that. And the urbanization in China is still driven by people who can buy properties. So this is where I see that maybe there's an impact on urbanization, but it's not as much. It's really urbanizing is still about the economic growth. If the economy is stagnant for a long period of time, people don't have money to buy properties, then the local governments don't have a revenue to develop infrastructure, then urbanization stops or even reverses.
At the weekend, Disney released a film recording of the hit Broadway musical Hamilton on its video streaming service. Hamilton, if you don't know, is a rap musical in which African-American and Latino actors play the founding fathers of the United States. It was a hit in theatres and looks like it will do well on the small screen too. Yet, a musical movie success out of Hollywood is a relatively rare thing. Andy Xie in Shanghai, you are a fan of musicals, aren't you? Do they do well in China?
Well, Chinese market for musicals is not quite there yet. And we haven't seen bigger blockbusters. I think that partly because that the musical tradition here is still kind of like a rock and roll. Rock and roll sells a little bit, but I think that Broadway doesn't sell as well here. Maybe that if you must have a theater experience first, I think, before you're willing to search and listen to audio or watch on a small screen. So I think the Chinese government does not allow these Broadway shows to put on in China, and that is a major factor in the market's development.
Well, that's almost it for this edition of the show. Thanks for your company this hour, and also a big thanks to our guests today, Nicole Childers in LA and Andy Xie in Shanghai. We are back at the same time tomorrow. I do hope you can join us then. Bye-bye.